Hello and welcome to the Comedian's OutLuke. I'm Luke Anthony and this week I'm joined by Kelly Ford. She is a radio presenter, producer, blogger, writer and also a stand-up comedian. We recorded this episode just before the Bridge Comedy Club, which is the night I run in a small function room at the Boathouse pub in Cambridge. There is a bit of reverb and we did record it around one microphone because during the sound check one of my leads decided to stop working, which did mean that it didn't record my reaction to that, which sounded something like, "For fuck's sake, why do these things always seem to happen to me?" To which Kelly said, it's fine, that's at least 10 minutes material. You know, and in retrospect, yes, it is. And every time something like that happens to a comedian, initially we're like, oh, this is so annoying. Why does stuff happen to me? And then we write great 10 minutes on it and make a room full of people laugh. So every cloud. Anyway, we didn't have much time to record this because towards the end, comedians started rocking up, open to perform. I really do urge you to check out Kelly Ford and all the social medias and her website and everything else, all of that sort of stuff. I'll give you the information at the end of the show and it'll all be in the episode notes. But until then, please welcome to the show, Kelly Ford. Firstly, Kelly, how did you get into comedy?
Well, I did the tried and tested route of doing a comedy course and getting far too confident and then following a path of getting out there and getting on with it and starting to gig. And then it's kind of becomes a bit of an addictive thing, right? And then you're gigging 3 times a week and bombing twice a week and learning all the feels and it's under your skin. So that was the beginning for me. A big shout out to Logan Murray, by the way. What a guy.
Logan Murray, I actually should count how many comedians I've had on the podcast who've done the course with Logan Murray. So I should do one with him, to be honest. Everyone says I should.
He's an amazing man.
Yeah, amazing man. I should try and do a little exchange with him and see if he'll come onto the podcast and I'll get a discount to do the course.
Do it.
Yeah.
He'll love that.
Would he? He could talk about the comedy course. And I did speak to a couple of comedians before who disagreed with comedy courses.
Right.
But I've always said, I don't think it could hurt. It can't hurt. It can't.
I think it, you know, for those who maybe have never done stand-up before or never written comedy, to actually be in a room with 12 strangers and learn about putting a 5-minute set together or doing improv routines together. These are really empowering techniques and skills to have when you actually go out there and you're playing to 2 people in a Dalston toilet, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, did you start gigging again before the showcase? Did you try and run up to like the showcase with? Could you do a showcase? Didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. Did a showcase. No, I didn't do that, but I was feeling so sort of confident and excited that my course was in the January, and halfway through the course I booked myself to do 20 minutes that August in Edinburgh.
Oh wow.
Which, I mean, was completely outlandish, but at the time it felt like a really good idea to set a goal, and I was advised by the brilliant comedian Katie. She said to me, go for it, deadlines are really important. And Katie Brand, and she said to me, go for it. And actually, those words and comedy are really important.
Go for it. Yeah. And I think that's pretty much the first lesson that Logan Murray teaches, isn't it? Is do everything, as in say yes to everything.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful lesson.
I think it's pretty much his first bit. So if you did radio predominantly for many years, why comedy? What gave you the compelling to do comedy?
I have always had great pleasure in making people laugh, and this was something from early school days. I think being bullied, I found a way of kind of getting friends or a sense of approval from making people laugh.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a bit of an addiction in a way. And I think for years I've always kind of enjoyed that feeling of making people happy. And then I remember this one day being in an office, a really quiet office, and it was a time where there were mouse mats and mouses, and you could hear the double click kind of ricochet across the room, but no one talking to each other. And I'd been doing quite a lot of kind of performance on the side through ugly models, so lots of character kind of performance in music videos or plus size modelling, and there was kind of this itch of like, actually, your calling has always been to make people laugh. Why don't you actually start taking it a bit seriously?
Yeah.
And I think I was 34. And I just was like, this is it. I'm going to go for it. Because actually, to do that kind of risky thing at 34 is a bit different than being 44.
That's
so
true.
Yeah, it felt right time.
Yeah, I mean, so you obviously build up a bit of a persona and kind of, I don't know, maybe typecast by being on the radio, and often you have to play sort of quite a straight character on the radio anyway, because you're not there to make people laugh. Obviously, you have to be bright and bubbly and everything to be sort of accessible for a wide audience. But how did you manage to sort of move away from that and be funny on stage when people know you to be serious?
Oh, well, I don't think anyone's ever known me to kind of be serious. If I take it back to the beginning of my radio days, I had a show called Toptastic Tuesday, which was on Evelina Children's Hospital Ward through Radio Lollipop, and also at Great Ormond Street. And the premise of the show was to get kids involved with making the radio and essentially make their time at hospital slightly more pleasurable.
Yeah.
Being at hospital is rubbish, but actually the experience of kind of the radio added a sense of fun and adventure for the patients and also for their siblings. So it was always quite silly. We would get the patients down from the wards, and it'd be quite often like, right, Kelly, you're going to be co-presenting with Josh. He only likes N-dubs, and we would kind of host breakdancing competitions or who can jump the highest, and that was a really good, kind of good grounding in broadcasting, but the whole essence of it was very silly. And my Soho Radio show, Sex Lives and Videotapes, is in its core, interview-based, meeting guests. It's kind of a Desert Island-esque rip-off.
Yeah.
Now in its 4th year, but I feel like I've kind of always tried to keep an element of effervescence and fun around it, and sometimes that means telling jokes, dependent on the guest, really. I mean, I had one guest who was a dominatrix, Mistress Charlotte, and she would turned up with a gas mask for me, and I was like, it's going to be a bit hard to speak on the radio with that. But I guess the transition from radio to stand-up, I feel like it oiled my wheels a bit, the radio, in terms of performance and gauging what the audience are thinking, I guess, yeah.
And I guess you must have a lot of diverse things come your way in terms of topics and everything else. So I guess there's a natural sort of minefield of material there, because you see so many different sorts of people, you speak to so many different sorts of people, and I don't know if that's the source of your material, or... Well,
I mean, I don't know what you feel about this, but I think life throws you material all the time.
I hope so, anyway.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, I get a little bit annoyed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I had a kid 3 years ago, and then you're like, fuck, now that is material.
Yeah.
Dealing with a toddler, definitely. I think meeting lots of different people, that definitely helps feed your creative booklet of life.
Yeah, great. So how do you go about writing your material then? If are you a storytelling comedian, or are you a one-liner comedian? What sort of...
Do you know what? I always find this question really hard, because I think I always call my comedy quite silly. The word observational I would chuck in there. I quite like doing characters. I like an element of musicality. I just like having fun, really.
Yeah.
And I guess at the core it's observational. But yeah, it's got quite a lot of silly thrown in.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you go about writing your material then? So what's your process to
I
writing a
totally
set?
missed your question, didn't I?
Yeah.
Well done, Kelly.
Yeah.
I haven't even had a vodka.
You haven't even had a vodka?
I think writing material with a toddler and, full-time work, freelance, is actually really quite hard. You have to do you know what? I want my house really clean before I write.
Do you know what? That's weird, because I have the same thing. I took a few days off to do some more writing from my day job, and before I could even start doing anything, I had to gut the place before I could do it, because I just knew there was something that I had to do. If I don't do it, my mind's going to be cloudy and muddy with it.
That's so right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would start writing thinking, oh, this could be a really good bit, and then I'll look at the floor and see a bit of lint in the corner, Luke, and I'll be like, oh no, I'm going to get the Hoover out and give that a quick whip round. So it definitely takes a certain state of mind to write, and I think as a comedian, you need to write a lot, and to have the discipline to write is something that I do find quite hard.
Yeah.
And I think you can't write when you're tired.
That's true.
You can't, and actually, so I actually started a blog called Book of Mum, bookofmum.com, and I'm also on Instagram. And that came about because when you first have a baby, you can't just go like, sorry, baby, I can't feed you tonight because I'm going to go and perform to 3 people in Stoke Newington.
Yeah.
So I was able to write through the blog and on Instagram, and it kept my writing skills lubricated and going whilst I was kind of in that 6-month foggy motherhood beginnings.
So I think your answer to my question is that to write your material, sometimes just be writing something and then eventually find the funny in it. So you could be writing something serious or just an observation, and then when you look at it again later, you go back to it and you think, okay, where are the funny bits on this? Do you pick and then hone it a little bit?
Okay, so in answer to your techniques of writing, I will write for, say, 45 minutes, I'm going to write a story. Or I'm going to write everything related that I hate about Boris Johnson and give myself little exercises. And then I will leave it and go back, revisit it, and then hone it. And then revisit it, perform it a couple of times. Oh, that bit doesn't work. Rewrite it. And it's kind of an ongoing process of sorting out what's good and what is crap. Because you have to, putting it politely, eat a lot of shit sometimes.
Do you practice with your baby? Do you talk to see how it works? Yeah.
She absolutely loves my fingering jokes. Yeah.
That's good for the podcast. That's good. Yeah.
But I do actually record myself on my phone when I perform, of course, and listen back to it. But I also sometimes perform to my laptop and watch it back.
Okay.
That poor laptop's heard some terrible jokes, but actually anything to kind of get the words out.
If you're telling a story, then you almost have to hear it before you, because there are bits where there are certain words when you're telling a story that will every time will make you stumble on that sentence. So I think there's a bit about, I personally, this is not about me, but it's words like without and then something that sounds similar to without. You're just going to stumble and stutter every time. So I guess when I write something, I try and read it out as I write. I think that's quite a common thing.
Yeah, that's good.
Do you do that?
Yeah, I think anything to make you hear the words.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you will write for an hour and you'll get really carried away with a concept, an idea. You think there's some good punchlines, some really great setups, and then you revisit it and you're like, oh my goodness, none of that makes any sense. But I think it's actually the discipline of writing, and I really noticed that my performance gets better the more I'm writing.
The more you're writing?
Yeah. But actually writing, the discipline of sitting down and writing is a really tough thing for me. I find that difficult.
So one of the things I like to get into with comedians is, because we've all been there, is about the times that they've died on their arse, or had a gig that really, really hurt, and then what your process for getting over that is. Usually
crying quite a lot, followed by a danger wank. That's one course. Sometimes you need to take time.
Yeah.
there are two courses. You can get straight back on it the next day, reflect, do the same material to a different room and get loads of laughs. Or you can go away and go, actually, what have I got to do to improve the set? Like, I think actually sometimes those moments of having a bomb or not feeling you're doing very well are actually the most constructive gigs. Because you analyse how you're coming across, and also sometimes you need that to actually get better.
Yeah,
I think if you go and Kevin Hart says that he bombs like twice a week.
really.
And
Still,
yeah, on that level. Yeah, I mean, I don't know still, but I think for a very long time that was something he said, and like he's the top of his game. And what inspirational words! It just reminds you that this is a process, and some people will love what you've got to say and find you really relatable and really funny, and then other people will be like, "Oh my, she's like Marmite," And those ones are hard though. I try not to cry, but then you're like, why am I doing this? Should I give it up? And then the next day you wake up going, I love it. I'm going to book another gig.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and I think with when you dine, I mean, I'd like to get into the details of a particular time that you have died in your ass, but we'll come to that. I think when we had a really tough gig, I think all you really need to do is actually just gig again, because unless I think you say that it's good to reflect and to sort of try and improve the way you do it, but I also think that if you do that too, and if you die too many times, then you might be changing material too often. I think I did that when I first started. I kept rewriting stuff and kept redoing stuff and kept redoing stuff. And in fact, it was just the way I was doing it. That, if you might learn and think of, okay, so that punchline didn't land, but why didn't it land? Is it because something's happened in the room in between your setup and then your punchline, or is it because you just didn't deliver it right? And I think that's why recording is so important, because the way you practice it in the car or to the mirror or to your child is completely different when you've got that adrenaline running through your body just before you get on stage. And there's always that awkward moment when the clap runs out before you get to the stage, and that always seems to change your course of action ever so slightly, which can then lead to you saying something wrong or set you off on the wrong path.
Adrenaline is a weird thing.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Then again, if I die on my arse, I just want to run out the fire. That's why there's a good, nice fire exit right next to our stage at this comedy club. So
I'm in Cambridge. I'm going to dive out of there if I bomb, land on a punting boat, and pump myself all the way back to Albert Square in East London.
I don't know how far the cam goes, but I'm pretty sure you could probably get onto another river. Then I don't know.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. If anyone's got a map and they're listening to this right now, please message us and tell us which rivers join the River Thames.
Please.
Yeah. It's one of the basically the whole night. Unfortunately, this is not going to be released until ages, so.
Aren't you lucky though? Isn't it fun?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Have you gigged in Cambridge before?
I haven't actually. I did Oxford 2 weeks ago, and now Cambridge, and I feel very scholarly.
Scholarly. I'm not entirely sure that's a word, or whether they'll accept that as a word.
Well, I'm sure they won't. I'm just checking the word scholarly, because I feel like it could be a word. I wouldn't just throw it out there like some crazy word whore. It isn't a word. Okay, that's embarrassing. Cool.
All right, we can cut that bit. That's fine.
Google's a bit slow.
Is it?
Well, I think that. Yeah.
It might be a word.
It might be a word.
It might be a word.
Let's make it up. It's a good word.
Yeah, Shakespeare and all that. He did 5,000 words, is it? 5,000 words he still use? Yeah, he's done all right. He died at 40.
Yeah.
He died at 40 though, that's not the best.
I bet he bombed a few times.
Yeah, I bet he did. So how much have you ventured out of London then? So, because I've told a few comedians on the podcast that London is like an echo chamber, and that you could get a room full of comedians that will all laugh at your jokes and you'll think they're amazing, and then you go to someone like Cambridge, which is a polite audience, and they often bomb because they've been living in this very small bubble well, it's a big bubble, but it's in this very small place of like London where everything they're saying is landing every night.
Right, that's interesting.
And then come to Cambridge and they struggle because they can be quite a polite audience, and it's just
I better get my coat. I've started doing a bit of venturing.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying the experience of performing to different audiences. I will say in London, I can perform one night in Fulham and the next night in King's Cross, and you're always getting different audiences. So I think I personally haven't felt the kind of echo chamber feeling.
Yeah.
I know if I perform in front of 6 comedic mates, who, we're supportive of each other, there will be laughs and, but there's also times where you'll be performing to comedians who are running through their own sets or writing or looking at their phones, man. Which I think needs to be outed, actually.
It's just a profound point you're making about.
Well, I don't know. I just
phones
think you've got to be a little bit mindful that you're not just there to perform your 5 minutes. Until you leave. No, just to be supportive. It's quite powerful. Thoughts on that?
I guess a lot of comedians are using their phones to go through material. I guess that's probably what it is. But yeah, I agree. If you're not present in the room, then and you're very, very soon to be outed as one of the comedians. It's a little bit unprofessional if you're sitting in the audience with the audience and then you're looking on your phone and not supporting.
You're on Tinder, yeah.
On Tinder, yeah, swiping right or left depending on whether you're a man or a woman. I think women swipe left most of the time because men have their dicks out all the time, and men just swipe right.
I'm so sad. I missed out on Tinder. I bet it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Anyone who is single, I often will grab their phone and just go, give me 10 minutes while rubbing my thighs.
Yeah. Rubbing your thighs. Nice image. That's good. That's really good stuff.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I was recently talking to Chris Norton Walker, you may know. He was on this podcast, and he introduced me to a technique called the memory palace technique, which is where you place odd items in a very familiar place. So you place like maybe breakfast items in very odd places in a familiar bedroom, right? And then you should be able to remember exactly where those are. So it can be very good to remember shopping lists. You can use it to remember your set and stuff. Is there anything you go through to remember your way along your material? Do you run through it until you just memorize it? Or?
Yeah, I run through it until I memorize it. I went to stage school, so there was kind of that discipline of learning your lines, through acting is something that's I've always kind of had. But I think also just that visual kind of the visual hooks. So I've got kind of characters in my set, and I'll kind of think, oh, Nicola Sturgeon doing the Duke of Edinburgh will lead me from one joke to the next,
Okay. So you have like checkpoints in your set?
Absolutely. And sometimes just before I perform, even if I've done the same set 50 times, I will just headline each joke on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And sometimes that piece of paper will end up in my jean pocket. I'll never refer to it. I initially used to write on my hand in the early days. That's something I don't do anymore. I may never ever refer to that piece of paper, but it's something comforting about just having the headlines of each joke.
Okay, so you can picture those in your head.
Anything to help you. And, I think sometimes actually not over fretting about things before you go on is quite powerful too. I was asked to MC at Udderbelly a month ago, my second ever MC gig, so I was quite complimented. But I didn't run through anything before I went. I had a few ideas. I knew my material, but I kind of also let the moment kind of take me a little bit too.
Yeah.
But I think those tricks of writing things down, if you write on your hand, great. Whatever you need to do to kind of make sure your performance is solid. It's wicked.
Yeah. And how many times do you think you'd have to do a set before you completely memorized it? Like completely, like I know you do your headlines before you go on, just as a comfort sort of visualization. How many times do you think you have to perform a new bit of material before you've remembered that particular set?
On a personal level?
On a personal level.
I don't know, maybe 5-6 times?
5-6 times.
Is that a lot?
I don't think so. Well, if you're doing a new bit and you're doing it every day for a week, then that's 5 to 7 times.
Yeah.
So that's a week of solid performing.
Yeah.
So that's good. I mean, so since you said you started comedy before you had children.
Yeah.
And what was your material like before you had a baby?
It was really ridiculous and absurd.
Was it all true?
No, all very silly. At the time there were Boris bikes, and I kind of characterised life of a Boris bike.
Okay, so you like personification. You like to act out kind of.
Sometimes, yeah.
Right.
There was a psychic Sally who kind of could telepathically guess what people's underpants were in the room.
Nice.
Do you reckon Cambridge will like that? No.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be. Yeah, the audience are going to be warmed up by a very good comedian, so I think you'll be all right.
Okay, but yeah, I did sort of personifications, observational humour, quite silly, really.
Yeah, and
as it's called.
And how much has it changed since having children?
Well, in terms of the actual content, it's still quite silly at its core. But I feel like my attitude towards comedy is slightly more determined and serious because my time has been taken by this grot bag. No, like you have to be more dedicated in what you do because time becomes more precious.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I'm going to go and perform a gig in Cambridge per se and do a 2.5 hour round trip, I've got to make sure I am prepared, I'm good, my jokes are funny, and that I get up and I make the best of it because you get one shot. And I think my attitude towards this journey has become far more driven and determined and wanting than it was before the delivery of Tabitha. Yeah.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
So you've got more motivation now.
Yeah.
So she is your motivation for comedy.
Yeah. Well, no, she's not. Yeah. I mean, I hope one day she'll laugh at my jokes. She does a bit when I'm fooling around, but I think your time is limited as a parent. So if you're going to do something, you may as well do it properly.
Yes. Rather than returning to it after she's 18 and like being much later in life. It's a very grim image for you, but
oh my god,
do it now because it's probably too late later.
Yeah,
well, it's not too late. It's just that why wait because you invest so much time and love and energy into a child, but then you get blamed for all their anxiety issues when they grow up. So
carpe diem.
Hey?
Right, carpe diem.
Yeah.
We've all got to live for the day, and I've always been that guy, and I always will be. So, but I think my material is. I feel experimental. I feel like I can talk about a lot of different things. I guess I feel like I'm learning a lot, and I think when you stop learning, that's when it gets really boring. So I just kind of constantly want to try out new stuff, and I've been so lucky to have the support of some brilliant nights like G&B with Carl Wallace and Sama at TNT, who have really championed me to kind of try out different stuff. And some nights I'll go up and I'll mime to Shaka Khan, or other nights I'll go up and I'll do a whole 5 minutes about the tragedy of being a mum. I think always learning and has been at the core of what I'm trying to do, really.
Yeah. So you said that very early on you went to Edinburgh with 20 minutes. How did that go?
The first night was brilliant. It was really good. I was in the newsroom, which is a lovely venue, and I had a couple of pals just turn up, and a couple of guys from my comedy course just turned up, and it was really good. I actually also had found out 2 days before heading to Edinburgh that I was pregnant. So I was kind of like heading up the Royal Mile, like trying not to vomit, because I was in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, and then like going off to do 5 minutes and making people laugh. But it was quite challenging. So I was also just getting my head around the fact that I'm going to have a baby. But so the first night, the first 20 minutes was really good. The second night, my daddy was coming, and that added a whole new level of pressure. Now, because I was very inexperienced and a bit shit, I rushed every word, and I was nervous, obviously, and I rushed every word, and it was like 15 minutes as opposed to 20 minutes, and the laughs in the room were very few, and it was really awkward. And actually the people I was staying with came, and I never forget afterwards, he just said, you should put some jokes in it.
Oh.
You should put some, some like...
One-liners.
Yeah, some jokes in. You should write some jokes for that. And I was absolutely mortified. And, actually everyone wants the approval of their parents.
Yeah.
Especially if they've flown to Edinburgh to see you do this thing. And actually he had been at my comedy showcase where I had smashed, because you do smash at a showcase. And he was quite startled actually that night. And this was like the starkest contrast ever. So ever since I've been like, when can I see you? I'm like, no. But then he has seen me on subsequent occasions, and it's been glorious. Most recently at Vault Festival, I hosted an hour with other comedy mums called Book of Mums, Mums Night Out. It was my first time emceeing, and that was an incredible night with amazing talent. Esther Manito, Pauline Eyre, Jenny Laville, Naomi Wattis, and Hattie Ashdown. And we did this amazing hour, and it was so diverse, and these were all mums, so I think we had 10 kids between us. So yeah, and he saw that, and it was like, oh, I can exhale.
You rewrote that record.
Yeah, but also foolish for me to invite people, 12 gigs in to do 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
Nutter.
Crazy. Yeah, well, that's it. But then after that, you've got a whole load more material.
Exactly.
Because you can talk about that time that you just found out you were pregnant and you went to Edinburgh. So there is at least another 10 minutes of material there.
Do you think?
I reckon so.
I'm going to write it before I go on stage tonight.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, why not? So I don't know if it's a supportive room tonight. They're all on the back of the Cambridge Fringe Festival, so...
was it good? Did it go well?
It was amazing, yeah. So I'm a bit worried that they're going to be expecting all the top headlines that we had at the...
Who did you have?
Loads of people. I can't really mention them because it's timeless. It's like a month away.
Okay.
So I was gonna. So you went to Edinburgh. You did that 20 minutes. You did well at one of them. You didn't do too well at before you went up. Did you go for the whole month?
No, I did like 5 days because I'm a working person.
You're a working person. Yeah. You need to keep your job. And it costs a lot of money to be up there.
It does, man.
That's only 5 days. Some people pay like £1,000 for the month, like for renting a room. But anyway,
go those guys. Go those guys.
Yeah. Have you been there since?
I'm going this year.
Going this year. So you're going up with another 20 minutes? Or?
I'm sharing an hour with another lady called Naomi Wattis, who is a very funny comedian, and we're taking a show called 2 Mums, 1 Cup.
2 Mums, 1 Cup, nice. And what's the show about, aside from 2 Mums, 1 Cup?
That's just the name of the show because we're a little bit silly. So we're just sharing an hour. I think Naomi's half an hour is going to be really funny and clever and brilliant and well crafted, and my half an hour is going to be a combination of motherhood musings and lots of observational moments from my life, really.
Okay. And how many days are you doing up there?
We're doing 7 days at the Golf Tavern, 2:15, and really excited. I think the crux of it is going to be just like, I want people to kind of step in my shoes for a little bit. I think it will be really fun.
So, have you previewed that in many places?
We are previewing.
You are previewing.
Yeah,
Do
we
you wanna-
are.
You are previewing.
And I'm very happy to provide you for your show notes all of those.
Yeah, don't worry, that will
dates.
be in there. Yeah, do
Yeah,
it.
cool.
Yeah, all links and everything like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks, Luke.
That's all right. That's all right.
I think it's going to be really good. Are you going up?
I'm not. No,
Oh, Luke.
It's one of those things that
What about doing just a couple of days and grabbing all
I
the
did think
spots?
about that. Maybe doing a weekend up there and just doing a load of 5 minutes just to
Yeah.
get the time. But we'll see. I mean, never say never, but I haven't planned to yet. I've got some big things coming up later in the year, so I'm trying to save money for that.
Okay. That sounds sensible.
This is now we now transitioned from my podcast to her podcast. Now she's interviewing me.
Aww.
A split podcast.
I just can't help it.
You just can't help it. It's in your nature. So have you ever been interviewed on a podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was delighted to be interviewed last week by Honey Kinney, who is Jonathan Ross's daughter, about body image post-birth. And I was a guest with Natalie Starmy Sunday, and we were recording it in Richard Curtis's office.
Really? Wow.
It was quite an hour. I could not stop looking at the artwork, the post-it notes, the scripts, but I was also trying to concentrate on, loving your stretch marks. It was quite a difficult hour, Luke.
Okay, I'm really sorry you had to go through that. But you're obviously moving up in the world. So in comedy, I don't know if it's probably the same in radio, but there's obviously been a shift in attitudes towards women in comedy and women in any sort of positions of success and stuff, and it's come a little bit late, and I'm surprised it has. How have you seen a shift since you've been working in radio in terms of like discrimination at all?
I mean, in radio, not so much. I mean, I really disagree with Radio X's remit of playing laddie songs for lads. And that kind of only having male presenters. I mean, that channel alone was quite shocking, actually.
No, they're still able to get away with it.
But, I have lots of experience of being the only female on the bill at comedy nights. And it's okay.
Like tonight.
You get used to it, like tonight, really.
Yeah.
It's okay. Actually, if anything, it feels like quite an exciting time for the female species and the feminist movements that are kind of happening around us. And big shout out to the Pink Protest, also, who are kind of harnessing an amazing energy behind feminism. But honestly, everything would be fine, Luke, if there weren't just so many wanking jokes.
Yeah, I agree.
It's exhausting. I want to also put in there jokes relating to the Nazis. Honestly, sometimes you will go to a night and you will hear 6 to 7 comedians talking about wanking or Nazis. And I just find it really difficult. I switch off. I'm probably at that point checking my phone. Like I said, was really naughty earlier in the show. But, but most of the time, I've got loads of comedian male friends who are brilliant, and it always feels very supportive and fair and brilliant out there. The open mic scene is a really supportive place, generally, full of incredible people. I do think it's a bit sad that quite often you are in the minority on a bill. But sometimes, there'll be a night like Girl Power that's hosted by Carl Wallace, and, you're playing amongst 15 other powerhouses of comedy.
Yes, yeah. And I think with your daughter's quite young, and Tabitha, and do do you think by the time that she's sort of 18, 19, that we'd have shifted by that time? Do you think that it would just be the norm? Because at the moment, I've spoken about it to another comedian on the podcast about positive discrimination, which is good because it gives people opportunities. But at the same time, the fact that we need it at the moment to have to readdress the balance, I think is a problem and highlights the issue. Because it should not be about positive discrimination. It should be just like, you're here on merit, and that is it. You're a fantastic comedian, whether you're a female, male, wherever you're from. You're just here because you're fucking good. And there shouldn't just be all female. It's great that there's all female bills, but you shouldn't have to do that. It should just be, all right, this is an all female bill. So what? Who cares? It is.
I think there's a shift already in panel shows, definitely. You can see there's no longer like a token black person, a token woman. I think there's been a real shift, and that props to Celebrity Juice for kind of leading the way on that. I mean, by the time Tabitha's 18, there'll definitely be a significant change from our time.
So stop telling wank jokes and Nazi jokes now, men, or fuck off. Yeah.
I don't know. I do risky material, and I hope Cambridge love it tonight. I do quite risky material, but I just think there's... I don't think, what happened in Auschwitz should ever be joked about. Ever. It was within 100 years of our lifetime.
So do you think there's any... So that's one thing you say you can't joke about. Even if the premise of the joke and all the substance around it is absolutely bulletproof.
I just find it really tricky to swallow. Yeah.
Right.
That's maybe it's a real personal thing, and that's what comedy is. What people find funny is so individual.
Oh, it's very subjective. Yeah, of course. I think there's certain things you shouldn't joke about, because there's nothing funny about millions of people dying. There's never anything funny about that. And but I do think there's humour around
wanking.
No,
you love it.
Not at all. No, there's only ever done one wank joke, and that was after someone else did a whole set about wank jokes.
How was that night?
It was shit. But I got a good laugh for my one.
Did you?
Yeah, it was alright because it was on the back of another one.
Was that in Cambridge?
Yeah, it was in Cambridge. Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, good luck. I think so if the joke is not that is not about, let's change away from, let's not talk about Nazis, because that's never going to be good. That's going to pop up on but I talk about bipolar, and I don't, in shorter sets I don't really talk about the dark stuff of bipolar, but in longer sets I can, because I've led up to it and I said it's okay, it's fine, we can all talk about this. So there's nothing funny about depression. But what is funny are the circumstances around it.
The extremities it's led you to.
Exactly. Or the circumstances as to what when you've tried to do something like self-harm or something, and you just didn't have enough medication to finish the job off. I think that's really funny, because it's now you're even more depressed and you can't even finish it off, and I think it's hilarious, and that's something that some people say you shouldn't joke about, because somewhere in the world, and many people have committed suicide and died, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. It doesn't mean we shouldn't joke about it, just because one or two people are going to be offended by it. I don't do offensive stuff, but in any room, anything they could talk about could upset one person. And so I just don't know where you draw the line. But then
the guy sitting next to that person who's upset has been educated, because they didn't know what bipolar is or where it's led them to, So I think actually by outing the subjects that aren't discussed, the menopause, these are big things, or miscarriage, or bipolar or depression or autism, actually is educating at the same time as making people laugh. I mean,
whereas everyone knows that the World War II happened, and
we can't.
Just as a no subject for you. I hope no one comes tonight and does any material about that. It wouldn't land in Cambridge anyway. That sort of stuff. I've seen people come here and do dark stuff like that, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work in Cambridge. like World War II stuff.
Yeah,
It just never does.
It's within 100 years, and probably everyone in Cambridge is very well read and versed on what the atrocities were. So.
It's all right. Some of the comedians that do that stuff, there's life expectancies going up and up, and by the time that it's been 100 years, it might be okay to talk about it. But who knows? So, are there any other subjects in comedy that you think shouldn't be spoken about?
Not really. I think, as I said, there's education through laughter, and actually. There are some people on the circuit who are making brilliant waves by openly talking about depression, autism, being fat. These are subjects that have all been a bit hush, like don't talk about that. Yeah. And actually, Sophie Hagen has been going out and talking about being fat and her experience, and many comedians are kind of talking about depression and how it's actually fueled their comedy. So I think it's really important, that, as you said, comedy's subjective. It's really important to out subjects and let the audience decide what's funny.
Okay. Because the latest thing really in comedy, so I thought this was coming in, and the latest thing in comedy is people saying you can't joke about people's gender realignment. You can't dead name people. You can't do things like that. There's a lot of with the new sort of snowflake era coming through. There's becoming more and more restrictions on what you're allowed to joke about, because around the corner, somewhere on social media, someone's just trawling through social media looking for something to be offended about. And I think we live in a very different time where you have to be very careful. You have to make sure that your comedy is absolutely dynamite, because if it isn't, someone's going to get pissed off.
You know what, Luke? I think it's very simple. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Like, James Ross runs a night called Quantum Leopard. Absolutely incredible night at 2 North Down. And his rules are no racism, no homophobia, no xenophobia, and no anti-Semitism. And those are his rules. And no sexism. And actually, that's very simple. It kind of just, it makes sure that no one is going to be a dick. Yeah. And that's it. Like, I think people should be able to talk about whatever they want to talk about, but not be offensive.
So what have you got planned for the next year?
Dun, dun, dun.
So
I am working on series 2 of the Everything Project, available on iTunes, which is a documentary radio series giving voices to those unheard. The first series is a 12-parter covering subjects from life as a male porn star to living with stage 4 cancer. So that's really exciting. I've written a sitcom.
Written a sitcom?
Yeah, and so I'm meeting a production company soon. So this will be in the past tense, so crossing all my fingers on that. I'm going to Edinburgh. I'm working hard on my residency and at Soho Radio. So yeah, that's every other week out on Soho Radio. And I've just shot a advert for McGuigan's wine that will be seen on UK TV from next month, June. There is something else. That's already quite a lot of things.
Okay.
And yeah, keep an eye on my Instagram, Book of Mum. We've got previews coming up of 2 Mums, 1 Cup over summer too. So I've got a really busy, exciting upcoming year, I think.
And so for next year, do you think that you'll take up a full hour to Edinburgh?
Who knows? Let's see how it goes. I'd like to think 45 minutes. No, I'm not. I spoke to Joe Bohr once, who's a brilliant stand-up, and he said, don't rush the hour. You've got time. And actually, I'm not keen to kind of... I want to make sure my craft is good, and actually, by the time I take a debut hour, that it's absolutely watertight, brilliant, full of lols.
There you go. She's down with the kids now. She's got a child. Bants.
Yeah.
Oh,
do we say that?
Yeah, litmus and all that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that another one?
No, I don't know that.
You don't know lit? It's pretty lit.
Yeah.
Yes, and then litmus is now.
Oh, is litmus the new lit?
I think so. Yeah.
Cool.
It's just a little one you could use when you're... How old is your child?
Sick.
Yeah. Sick.
Sick.
She's sick.
No, sick is...
Oh, that's so 2010. Jesus.
Do you want me to help you set up the chairs now?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much for joining me, Kelly.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
So that was Kelly Ford. What an amazing conversation. But just in case we didn't cover everything in that conversation because we were limited for time, here's just a quick idea of all the things that she does get up to. She writes this amazing blog called Book of Mum, which follows a true account of her journey of being a mum. I think Dad should read this as well because you might learn something. She is also a radio presenter and producer for Soho Radio. She presents sex lives and videotapes every other Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. She has her split bill show, 2 Mums and 1 Cup, which she mentioned during this episode, with Naomi Wattis, going to Edinburgh. That's with the Laughing Horse at the Golf Tavern, running from the 17th to the 22nd of August at 2:15 p.m. Any other information about her, run over to her website, kellymaxineford.com, and all the links, social media handles and places you can catch her on the radio doing comedy, or if you just want to read her amazing blog, the episode notes are packed full of all that information, so please do click on those things. There are still tickets available for our live recording of the Comedians OutLuke on the 30th of September, that's a Monday. My special guest is the awesome Rich Wilson, who is highly rated by the huge names like Frank Skinner, Rob Beckett, Sarah Millican and many, many more. He is one of the best comedians in the country right now and also hosts his own podcast called Insane in the Membrane. But tickets to our live recording are only £7, so please do run over to lukeanthonycomedy.co.uk/TCO live for ticket information. They're going to go quickly, so get hold of them now while you can. And don't forget, you can become a patron of the podcast to get exclusive content from the interviews. And if you do, it also gives you free tickets to one of the live shows. Info is also on the website. A little update from me as well. I finished the first draft of the pilot episode of my new sitcom called Hello There, but now I have to write the rest of the series as well, which is slightly daunting. I am also simultaneously working on my work in progress stand-up show. Details are coming soon. But whilst you're checking out Kelly's links, have a click on mine too. But that's it from me. Speak to you soon.